Henry Lee is probably the most famous criminalist in the United States, maybe in the world. Okay. He testifies at all kinds of trials. He's a specialist in what he calls reconstructing the crime, okay, from the elements that he has, okay, and then he puts together what he believes happened. He's world famous. He used to be a captain in Taiwan, came to the United States, went to NYU, and he became this world famous criminalist, all right. About the Kennedy assassination, he told Oliver, he said, look, in about 70 to 80% of the cases I study, I can render an opinion. About 10%, okay, I can only give what they call a partial, all right? And then in the rest, I just can't give an opinion. In the Kennedy assassination, that was the case. I can't give an opinion. And the reason I can't give an opinion is because this autopsy material is one of the worst I've ever seen. Okay, it's qualitatively and quantitatively, it's one of the worst autopsies I've ever seen. And by the way, a student of his, because he has his college up in New Haven, okay, got online and said, at one of the first classes he was at, Henry Lee went off on the Kennedy autopsy for 20 minutes on how bad it was. It was almost like how not to conduct an autopsy, all right? And so he said that he just couldn't render an opinion. And then he commented, and this is in the book, he says, you have this bullet coming in from a right to left angle in Kennedy's skull, the back of his skull, and then it comes out this angle, okay, left to right, out of his front temple. And Oliver asked him, well, what kind of an angle is that? He goes, that's like a 90-degree angle. And he just sat there and he goes, you know, like it was something that was really kind of very bizarre to him. And remember, this guy has seen so many gunshot homicide cases. I think he said about 1,000, okay? But this was very, very bizarre to him, this case, okay? And so that was a very interesting interview that he did with us. And then we have people like Brian Edwards, who was a police investigator for like 22 years in Lawrence, Kansas. And today he teaches criminal justice. And he talked about how he was a sniper. He was on a sniper detail, a SWAT team. Okay. And he said, look, every time you shoot from a high to low angle, which is what is in the Kennedy case, because Oswald's supposed to be on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository, firing downward. He goes, you're going to miss the first shot. Okay. Because it's going to be too high. Okay. It's very difficult. Any sniper will tell you, all right, that this is one of the most difficult shots that there is. All right. And then he talked about how he had been a witness in many, many cases. All right. And a very serious problem in the Kennedy case is what we call chain of custody, which means, and by the way, Henry Lee did a nice job on this also. Okay. How it begins at the scene of the crime, goes to the police headquarters, and comes into court.
Why is the chain of custody so important?
Because if you don't have a good chain of custody on evidence, it leaves a defense wide open to attack you. Because what that signifies, and they said this, that either somebody altered the evidence or somebody could have substituted the evidence if you can't account for every step in the chain. And so in the Kennedy case, for example, there is no brain. Kennedy's brain is gone. It disappeared somewhere around in 1965 or 1966. And nobody can account for it. All right. And why is that important? Because
you say his brain disappeared. What do you mean by that?
It's not in the National Archives.
They talk about a brain being preserved in formaldehyde, like a
Right.
fully intact
That's
brain.
what you have to do. Now, I'm glad you brought that up. See, what you're supposed to do if you're doing a gunshot autopsy with one of the gunshots to the head, okay, you're supposed to go ahead and preserve the brain, okay, in what you just said, a formaldehyde solution. And what that does, and Cyril Weck talks about this in the film, okay, what that does, it makes the brain more solid. So you can do what they call serial sectioning. And you do that in one of two ways, like either a bread loaf like this or a pie cut like this. Now, why do you do that? Because, and Michael Chesser talks about this also in the film, he's a neurologist, because that's the way that you track the bullet path through the brain. Okay, you can see it more clearly, all right? And if there's more than one bullet, also, you can find that. Well, Kennedy's brain disappeared. The only record, the actual record we have of it, which is very odd, it comes in at 1,500 grams. Now, why do I say that that's odd? Because the average brain weight, and they did a Dutch study of this, about 8,000 specimens, is about 1,350 grams. That's the average brain weight. So the question becomes...
So like 2.9 pounds or something?
Yes.
A little bit under 3
so
pounds.
So the question then becomes, how is Kennedy's brain weigh more when, as anybody can see in the Zapruder film, that Kennedy's head gets blasted, blood and tissue, you know, in the air, okay? All over Jackie Kennedy, all over the back seat, okay? And all over, you know, flying around Dealey Plaza, all right? And when the doctors and nurses came out to the car, there's pictures of the car, and it's blasted, okay, with debris out the back. And so how can Kennedy's brain weigh more than the average when everybody can see the damage of that headshot? Okay. Now, in the film and in the book,